You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. So the next article I want to look at tonight is entitled "Defying Court Order, COVID-Denying Pastor Hosts Jam-Packed Indoor Church Service." This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. So let's give it a read and see what it has to say. Despite a court order preventing his church from hosting a massive in-person gathering, California pastor John MacArthur, which I've been talking about him for a few weeks now, did it anyway Sunday morning, putting hundreds, if not thousands, of Christians directly in the path of danger. For more than a month now, MacArthur, the leader of Grace Community Church in Sun Valley, has been celebrating the lack of social distancing and face masks in his congregation. A couple weeks ago, he falsely claimed there is no pandemic. And yesterday, he once again broke the law when he shunned the idea of outdoor services with sensible COVID restrictions in favor of an indoor service with no restrictions whatsoever. The sermon opened up with a lengthy ovation from the crowd because a death cult always celebrates its leader, before MacArthur explained why the county's restrictions were too onerous for him to follow. I actually downloaded the video, so let's give it a watch. Ew, it's in 4:3. Why would they do 4:3 aspect ratio? That's terrible. Oh my God. What is this, like 1996? What the hell is happening right now? I thought they were a mega church. They have the money to have a camera better than one from 1996. Ugh, that's awful. Okay, let's give it a watch. Okay. All right. Get over yourselves. Took 28 seconds of cheering for them to get over it.
You people are out of control. Wow, thank you. Are you happy to be at church?
Oh my God, more cheering? Come on, people. Get to the fucking point already.
The question has come up a number of times about why Grace Church does not just comply with the orders that have been laid down for churches. And I thought it might be helpful to give you the list of things that are required of us as a church so that you understand how utterly impossible that would be.
Okay, it's not impossible. Other churches have complied with this order. He only wants to portray it as impossible. Let's continue.
Here are the basic orders. No indoor meetings at all.
That's not true. Point number 1 is no indoor meetings at all. Points like 3 through 8 are how to have indoor meetings if you're going to have them. He's just completely making that shit up. They recommend no indoor meetings, but if you're going to have indoor meetings, here are the list of criteria that you need to follow. So let's continue. Point number 1, a lie.
Pre-registration of every person who comes onto church property.
Now, that one is important to them because they're obsessed with the government tracking them or their private information being tracked or whatever. As if this shit isn't fucking tracked by their cell phones. Seriously. Everyone's always worried about getting microchipped by Bill Gates or some shit. As if they're not carrying a cell phone around and using Facebook, which tracks every move they make, every word they type in. I mean, as if they're not having like these identifiers from ads follow them from website to website. They're obsessed with being followed or tracked or recorded or whatever when they're doing it of their own free will and they don't even realize it, even though they should. It's bizarre. Let's continue.
People only allowed on church property for scheduled events.
I'm not sure why that one even matters. Why would anybody be at the church unless it was like for a scheduled event? I never went to the Kingdom Hall, my Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall, unless it was for a scheduled event. Even if that scheduled event was cleaning. We did a weekly cleaning at the Kingdom Hall. You know, we'd all go there on like Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon or something like that, and we'd get out the bucket and mop and scrub it all down. It's just really strange to me that he's kind of complaining over this. Let's continue.
Every person who comes on the property is to be screened and have their temperature taken at the entry.
Not a challenge. That's not that hard. I actually bought a little head thermometer not long ago. It cost me like $30 or something like that. Just put it to your head, pull the button, and it tells you you're done. What's so hard about that? I don't get it. Is it because it's forcing them to acknowledge the fact that we're in a rough situation right now as a country, as a world, and they just don't want to? They just want to think that Jesus is solving the problem for them, and this is shoving it in their face that he's not? I don't know. Why? Tell me why.
We all must maintain 6 feet of social distance at all times everywhere, including the parking lot and the restrooms.
Why is that funny? I don't understand. They must not know what's at stake here, in all seriousness. They must absolutely need to believe that Jesus is going to protect them from this shit. They must need to know that if Jesus isn't protecting them, then he's not real or something. I don't know. I don't know what the basis of their fear is. Just follow the guidelines. Just be careful. You will save lives, including maybe even your own. Why are they dying on this hill? Literally in some cases.
Every other parking space must be left vacant.
Right, so that you don't step out of your car and get right on top of somebody. Like, so that you're not both going to your car at the same time and have to squeeze into a space that's closer than 6 feet. It's ideal to stay as far away from people as possible, right?
Marked pathways to maintain social distance, keeping people apart, monitored by staff monitors.
Again, with this obsession that they're being followed or tracked or monitored or whatever by the church, by the staff there. If they can't trust the church, who can they trust, right? I mean, that should be the idea in these people's minds. Again, as if a cell phone doesn't follow every move they make.
Everyone always wearing a mask. Restroom monitors to control 6 feet social distancing at restrooms. Tape on the ground marking distance. Signs indicating these mandates, and also full exposure on social media. Restrooms are to be used during the service to minimize the rush. That would be interesting.
I don't understand why people are laughing here. I don't get the joke. What's amusing about this? Somebody explain this to me. Seriously, I don't get this. Why is this funny? Why is it funny that you're trying to protect your 1,000-person congregation from being infected with a deadly illness? What's amusing about the fact that you're refusing to protect them?
No hymn books, no communion, no offering containers.
Okay, now right here, this is where I can start to understand an argument about freedom of worship and all of that other junk. All the other stuff was so straightforward. It's so straightforward. Requires almost no effort on the church's part. Just stick a couple of attendants out there with some thermometers. Like $60 on thermometers, screening people and having them come in. What is so hard about that? Nothing hard about that. Now, this argument here, no communion. I can understand why churches would have an issue with that, even though I think it's stupid. I get how they feel like that's a part of their worship and it's infringing on their worship if they blah, blah, blah. But this is a deadly pandemic, okay? This is serious shit. This is nothing to play around with. You can, within the confines of your belief system, take communion that you have brought, or take communion when you're at home or something. You can do it in a safe way and still be within the confines of your belief system. But he didn't just refuse to do that one. He didn't just say, no, I'm not gonna, well, we're still taking communion. He didn't just refuse those things. He refused literally everything. He refused to ask people to stay 6 feet apart. He refused to ask people to bring their own hymn books. He refused everything. He didn't just refuse the things that he felt he needed to maintain his religious beliefs and his religious practices. He refused all of it. If he had refused a couple of things like taking communion, I'd still disagree with the guy, but I would understand where he was coming from. Since he's refusing literally all of it, all I can figure is he just wants to die, and he just wants everyone in his congregation to also. I mean, that's my best guess. I don't know. I don't know why he's doing something so foolish, so stupid.
No pew Bibles, no singing, no hugging, no shaking hands. Disposable seat covers changed between services.
I don't get it. Why are they laughing again? Why is it so hilarious? Is it because they think Jesus is going to protect them from getting sick? Is that what it is? I'm not connecting the dots. This is such a straightforward, basic step that they could take to keep people safe. Has nothing to do with religious worship, putting seat covers on the seats. It's just a safety measure. That's it. It's like people sitting there laughing when they're told to wear a seatbelt while driving. Seriously, that's what this is like. Wear your seatbelt or you're going to get in trouble. And then they laugh. And they don't wear the seatbelt anyways. Okay, but you're going to go crashing through that windshield one of these times. Unfortunately, it's not just them that they're affecting by refusing these orders. It's everybody in the vicinity of this church. Everybody involved with the churchgoers. Their friends and family and everybody.
And the services have to be shortened.
Again, I'm not seeing the funny part of this. It would actually be pretty straightforward to shorten the services, though. They could shorten them to 30 minutes each, and they could hold, say, 3 or 4 of them a day on a Sunday. Right? I mean, the pastor's going to be there like all Sunday anyway. He's got work to do, whatever pastors do. I have no fucking idea. He could do a 30-minute sermon in the morning for one group of people, 30 minutes an hour later for the next group, 30 minutes an hour later for the next group, so on and so forth. If he truly wants to serve his congregation and not himself, that's what he would do.
That's not a problem to me, right? And based upon the separation, we could only meet in the tent with a maximum of 350 to 400 people.
I think that their church is like 1,000. It's around 1,000 people. So 350 to 400 people. I would say their best bet would probably be to get 4 groups of 250 each. Or maybe even 6 groups of 200 or 150 each or whatever. I don't see why that would be such a big problem. Stay safe. You're supposed to be thinking about your health and the health of your congregants. You're supposed to be protecting them, right?
You can see that these are the requirements that would completely shut the church down.
How would it shut the church down? It costs almost nothing to do this shit. Which one of these things would shut the church down? And in what way would it shut the church down? If there's a legitimate problem where the church would be shut down as a result of these orders, we'll work through it. Let's work through it. Let's figure it out. Let's find some way that we can do this safely and also keep the church open. I'm open to that. He's not. He's not even taking the most basic safety measures. He just wants people to die. That's it. That's all I can see here.
Anybody who comes in contact with someone outside their family for more than 15 minutes must self-quarantine for 2 weeks. Obviously, this is not constitutional.
It is actually constitutional. It's for public safety, public health. This is within the Constitution because every human has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By brazenly ignoring safety precautions, basic safety precautions, like a seatbelt, for example, you are violating my right to life. Your right to swing your fist, the right that you have to swing your fist around, ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing it anywhere you want except for right here. You can say that's infringing on your liberties and your rights. But you swinging your fist right here infringes on my rights. Your rights go as far as you can take them, up to, but not including, infringing on mine. That's how a society works. That's how a society should work. He is brazenly ignoring that fact and swinging his fist wherever he wants. And his congregants are going to get sick eventually, if they haven't already. That is him swinging his fist and hitting them in the nose. And they're going to carry it back to their family members and their friends. And that ultimately is the pastor continuing to swing his fist around because he's ignoring basic safety guidelines. Basic stuff. Let's continue.
It goes against the will of the Lord of the church.
How? How does it go against the will of the Lord of the church? I guess he means Jesus. Or does he mean himself? I don't know. How does it go against Jesus? What is it? Can you show me a verse in the Bible where Jesus said, don't take basic safety precautions to keep your flock safe? Is there any point in time where Jesus said, do not protect your flock? Did he ever say, put them in harm's way intentionally if you don't like what the government wants you to do? Did Jesus ever say shit like that? I don't remember it.
So look at the person next to you and say, I don't know who you are, but I'm so glad I'm sitting next to you.
I don't get, why are they laughing? They laugh at like everything. He's not even telling a joke. What's hilarious here? I want in on this joke. This guy absolutely disgusts me. I don't know how he lives with himself. We just had a 100-year pandemic, and we're right in the middle of it currently. Naturally, we knew there would be fools who were more interested in spreading it than protecting their flock. We knew that was going to happen at some point. Well, here he is. This is the guy. This one, and what was the other dude's name? Tony something from Life Tabernacle. This guy right here, Tony Spell. Could not remember his name for the life of me. Tony Spell, John MacArthur, and lots of others are acting as super spreaders. They intend to spread it to as many people as possible. It honestly reminds me of the cult in North Korea, Shincheonji, I believe is how it's pronounced, that actively set out to spread it to people, like actively tried to give the virus to people when it first came out, like when we first discovered it. I think South Korea got their first case on the exact same day we did. And the Christian cult there, Shincheonji, was actively spreading it around. They knew which precautions to take and actively set out to violate them. And Lee Man-hee, the leader of the Shincheonji church, actually got arrested recently for that because he was actively trying to spread it. What are these people thinking? Jesus said to protect your flock, and they are setting out to slaughter them. Anyway, let's continue reading Hemant Mehta's article on this. You can hear the congregation snickering as he reads some of those perfectly reasonable requirements. They laughed out loud at the idea of keeping every other parking spot vacant and using restrooms in a way that didn't leave them jam-packed and unhygienic. Obviously, the requirements are constitutional because they're in service of maintaining public health and because everyone else is subject to the same rules. They're far from utterly impossible, too. Other churches seem to be getting along just fine. Why is it that everyone except MacArthur can do the impossible? His God must be weak. MacArthur could meet outdoors. He could host multiple services by keeping fewer people socially distanced. He could do what so many other churches have done and stream his services online. No collection plate online. That's the problem. I guess you have PayPal, but you don't have the pressure of 100 other or 1,000 other people around you who are also putting money into the plate, watching to see what you put in. MacArthur refuses to do any of this because he's a selfish preacher who will gladly sacrifice the physical well-being of his congregation in order to become a living martyr for the cause of faith-based negligence in the face of disaster. How many people in his church have to die before he admits he's the villain in this story? And here are some new questions. Now that MacArthur is openly defying a court order, what will the government do in response? Will they arrest church leaders? Will they board up the building? Will Christians be allowed to ignore laws they don't like, even if it means creating super spreader events that put the entire community in danger? Why should this church be allowed to ignore the restrictions imposed upon everyone else in the midst of a pandemic? If MacArthur is allowed to get away with this, it calls into question the entire rule of law, much less religious neutrality. Just because MacArthur doesn't give a damn about his church members doesn't mean the government should act the same way. Unlike these Christians, government officials should act with compassion and intelligence and shut this place down before more people have to suffer. I agree with that completely. Unfortunately, religion and politics are completely intertwined with each other at this point, inextricably linked. And religion, specifically Christianity, gets favored by the government entirely too often. Far more often than it should. It should never be favored. It should be treated equally. But this is a Christian nation. This is a Christian nation, and we can't expect repercussions for groups of people who claim to be Christian and claim religious liberty. These people act like martyrs. They act like they're persecuted, like they're mistreated. Ultimately, we're not persecuting them. We're fighting Christian supremacy.